Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Get Sweaty with Leddy. I have a new friend in here today, and by new friend I mean this is my first time meeting Harvey.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, fun fact, previous guest Reed Nellis of Minnesota Movement, after our episode he reaches out to me and he's like, hey man, you gotta meet this guy Harvey, I think he's gonna be great for the show, yada yada yada. I'm like, sweet. And then recently another guest, Glenn Auerbach, I'm on the phone with him, and he goes, "Oh, hey, I got a guy for you, Harvey. You gotta meet him. He's got to be on the show." And I'm like, "Glenn, he's gonna be on the show in 2 days. You know that's awesome." But so it's pretty. You know, thanks for letting me know. But I already got this one on lockdown. So
Love that.
It was clearly meant to be.
Yeah.
That we're gonna be sitting on the bench here.
No doubt.
So Harvey, tell us what brings you into pain.
Yeah, that's a beautiful intro. First of all, shout out to both those guys. Those are both lovely gentlemen, beautiful souls. What brings me into pain? What a beautiful, I love how we started that when we first, introduced each other on the concept. What brings me into pain? I would say if I go back to from the context of my story, right? That's fair.
Yep.
I would say when I first was exposed to pain, it was more of it was kind of a physical, but it manifested itself into a mental pain. And I was playing baseball in the minor leagues with the Milwaukee Brewers at the time. This was 2015. And I had some chronic back pain, like some chronic hip pain, nothing like crazy, right? Just go have a PT work on you, do your bit.
Yeah.
And then I went into spring training in 2015, and I started noticing when I would throw in a bullpen, I started noticing I would lose a little bit of my command. Like nothing crazy, but also something I'd never experienced before. And probably towards the end of camp, that really manifested into crazy. It went from like minute, slightly like couldn't throw a strike here and there to like couldn't find the strike zone as a pitcher. Yeah, and that manifested very quickly at the end of spring training 2015 into the first month of the season where I essentially had the full-blown yips. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept.
I'm familiar,
yeah.
So you describe that as just you can't hit the target.
Yeah, you just like the way I explained it in like a humorous way. If anyone remembers the Space Jam movie back in the day where they all took the powers out and put it in the ball.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they couldn't dribble and stuff.
Yes.
That's the way I explained it in like a humorous sense. Is basically you just like are been talented at something for your whole life. Or in this, I was a professional baseball player at the time, so I was obviously talented at the thing.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't throw a strike at all, so I've lost all ability to do what I could do. So it felt like Space Jam. But in the way, like to generalize the yips, it's really just anxiety. It's like performance anxiety. And the way I would explain it in like a simple way is it's basically like having a panic attack.
Yeah.
So you're having a panic attack in your performance.
Oh man, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No.
Especially being a pitcher.
Yeah.
You're front and center,
Yeah,
all
you're the
eyes
thing.
on you.
Yeah.
Controlling the ball. 90% of the time, 99% of the time,
right.
Between just like what happens on the baseball field.
Yeah.
And that's got to be mentally just draining when you're trying to contain yourself on the mound while performing at an elite level.
Yeah, I mean it is, right? First of all, it's like terrifying, and then where it manifests into mental. And I'm happy you asked it the way you did, because I'll pull this answer in together, which I've had tons of time now to think about this. This is over a decade ago, so it's like I've had some time to reflect and process. But what's interesting is like the mental side of it, once it happened and I had essentially, there was no going back, right? I got to a point where I couldn't throw a baseball. Like I would throw balls like into the backstop or in like 40 feet in front of the plate. Like I'd spike it. And it just got to a point where I was like frozen, because that's a panic attack. You're essentially in a crazy sympathetic fight or flight freeze state in this scenario, and then you're in performance. So to what you just said, yes, if you're a professional, you're an entertainer if you're a pro athlete. Mm-hmm. So if I'm standing on the mound there to entertain the people that are there, I physically couldn't perform. So now if you're imploding like that in front of people, it's a terrible experience, as you can imagine, right? And I'm not the first. This has happened to tons of people. It happens to athletes in all kinds of sports. It just gets highlighted as a pitcher because that's what pitching is. You know, sometimes people can hide it in different positions. A lot of people have the yips and they still perform. If you get that as a pitcher, that's the death of you, right? But anyway, so what's fascinating about that, to what you said, is that, yes, it manifested into this mental, like, anticipation phase. I used to anticipate pitching. So I would know I'm going to throw in 2 to 3 days. And the anticipation, anxiety would start to creep in. And so it bled into this, like, chronic anxiety, mental part of my life. So I categorize it as it finalized itself mentally. But what turned my life into a profession, which brings me into pain as like a, let's beat it up and think about it and digest it and try to understand it. What I found when I got released, obviously, a couple months later. So I got released in June of 2015. So that'll be 10 years this June coming up here. And when I got out of it, one of the things I was clearly not wanting to do was I didn't want to take medication. I didn't want to take anti-anxiety or antidepressant stuff. And that was what I was kind of like leaning towards or getting pushed towards. Not like aggressively. It was just like those were the options.
Yeah, I mean, that's the natural path, right?
Yeah,
it's very easy for someone to recommend take these pills.
For sure. Yeah, so that was what was happening to me. And I was just like, I felt like, let me try to do this naturally. Now I can use certain words that I didn't know then, but it's like at that point intuitively I was just like, how do I heal myself without that option? Give me some time. If I can't do it on my own, then I'll use the option. That was like my rationale, right? And so the rationale turned into, I discovered breathing, which was also somewhat intuitive. I met a guy who was doing Wim Hof breathing here in Minnesota, and I would go to his house on Saturdays, and he would kind of guide me and teach me through some practices. And then they had a wood-burning mobile sauna that they had just built. This was in 2015, and they just had a little tiny one in their backyard. His partner at the time, now wife, she was a sound bathing meditation teacher. Nice. So we would do this like wild, like, program that I'm so familiar with now, wasn't familiar with then. It was like I'd go there, we'd do breath work, we'd sauna, we'd jump in a cold tub to kind of contrast a little bit, and then at the end we'd drink tea and we'd do a deep meditation, and she'd use frequencies and whatever.
What a process.
Oh, it was incredible. It was like hours, like 3-4 hours.
Absolutely. I mean, immersing yourself in just a state of wellness. 100%.
And it's funny you say that, because still at that time I wouldn't have known it was wellness. I was just so surrendering to the situation. Like, take me, I'll do what I'm trying to heal.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything. I just noticed how I felt. Right? And like intellectually, I'm sure we can talk into some concept. I can talk deeply now, intellectually, and like what breathing is, or what sauna is, or what cold is, obviously, because I made a profession out of it. But at the time, and this is why I'm so grateful for it, I went into this wellness space purely off of feel. Like, it was all intuition. I wasn't trying to understand anything. I was just trying to get better. And that's what I noticed when I would go and do that on these Saturdays. I would leave and I'd go home. And as simple as it is then, as simple as it is now, I would realize that every Saturday I'd go home, and it was like the only day of the week that I felt happy, but I felt less stressed. Like, when you're so chronically anxious and in pain, it's like you're trapped in a cage, right?
Yeah.
Like your nervous system is just grabbed.
Yeah.
And you can't get out of it. And I would go do this on Saturdays, and it would be like a minimal space, but it was enough space to know that I didn't need to live contained. It wasn't changing my life necessarily. It was not like on Monday I woke up and was free.
Yeah.
But it was like enough to know that I could get free. And so I kept going back, and I did that for the duration of that fall. And then that winter, we're staring at Lake Minnetonka. This is Lake Minnetonka, right?
Yep.
And another variation or position of the lake, I swam in the lake did breath work, no heat source, and I just did an athlete mind. I challenged myself to swim in the water. We carved some space for me to be able to swim in and out, and I had some people who were watching me. And it was, as the story goes, I've told it for the last 10 years, that was like my awakening. That was like my profound connection to nature. And I never looked back. And that's to the original part of this conversation. What flipped on me, and my perspective has maintained this since, is I realized I was trying to beat my mind with my mind. And psychology, and a lot of in sports, psychology is taught through psychology. It's like, you have psychological issues, let's work on psychology. And my worldview was flipped, because what I learned about psychology is it's a byproduct of your physiology. And now all of a sudden I could physiologically align myself with some tools through nature, and I could beat up my nervous system and heal it and penetrate myself through senses and nervous system regulation. And then my brain would think differently as a byproduct of that. And that's what, once that clicked with me intuitively, it was like off to the races, right? It was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Oh, man. That's an incredible story.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
So you've been in this now for 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of I would say, not like necessarily repercussions, but any instances that might take you back into that state of anxiousness or fright, or do you feel that you're far, or maybe it happens, you recognize it, and you're so strong enough now because of the tools that you've built that it's just it's nothing.
Yeah, that's a really cool question. I would say I had a few panic attacks after baseball, and I had obviously the line of what I just told the story. Clearly I was not doing well mentally, so you go down a path of I was clearly depressed in a way. I was battling chronic anxiety. That's just not a way to live, right? I'm not unique in that. A lot of us go through periods of our life where we experience those things. And I think that in an essence, that's pain, right? What I've learned about pain is that everything's everything: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. It's all aligned. And so pain becomes this fascinating teacher. Yeah. And there's this deep paradox to pain. So do I have moments today where I remember what that pain was like 10 years ago? For sure. I haven't dealt with panic attacks since the end of my playing career. I've had anxiety for sure, but nothing where it's like deliberate, it's like crushing my life. Yeah, like there were times like I couldn't do things in society.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, and so I think have I experienced that? No, I haven't. Am I immune? Am I beyond that? No. And I think that's the principles, right? Because when I broke, metaphorically, in that scenario with performance anxiety, it didn't just happen that day. And that's what I've learned a lot about working with athletes and myself, right? It was like an accumulation of years of suppressing sympathetic activities or lifestyle parts. It was disobeying the principles of health. Yeah. Which the principles of health, in my opinion, are in accordance with nature. They're very simple. All of the species experience breathing, nutrition, movement, and sleep. Humans have, supposedly the way we understand it, we have the highest level of consciousness, so we have social connection. Yep. We have the ability to interpret ideas and tell narratives, and we experience love at a higher level, right? So we share all four of those as rational, foundational principles of health. And if there's a leak in one of those four, breathing, nutrition, movement, and sleep, then you're going to get hurt, mentally or physically. So, when I look back at my life, I was a chronic mouth breather my entire life. I was anatomically unsound in my jaw, which I'm still trying to fix as an adult. It's obviously easier when you're a child, but narrow airways, jaws pushed back, I have crooked teeth. I've been a mouth breather. That's fight or flight activity. So it's to do that as a pro athlete and think that you can just ride on pain pills and Red Bulls and then smoke yourself to sleep at night and then get up and do it again the next day. Well, it's fine in the short term, in the interim, you can kind of get away with that and have a few good outings here and there. But as far as longevity, vitality, that system will break because you've dispersed you've taken yourself away from nature. So what I would say is, today, I have a ton of respect for the potential of what can happen. I'm very clear of where your brain can go. Yeah. I'm very understanding of the depths of pain. I'm not naive to it. I'd like to try to stay humbled to the potential of it. But I also, I just trust the very simple rules of maintaining health. And it's what I just said. It's very basic. It's you just make sure that you're aligned with the sun and you sleep. You make sure you do certain practices like this that are very natural, very up and down, polarizing to the nervous system, so they kind of zap you. And then you just become aware of breathing and clear yourself in the food as best as you can, which I know it's hard where we're at in society. And then you just move, right? And it's as simple as going on a walk. It's a walk to me is a non-negotiable.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's so easy.
So easy.
And you would think it might not be doing enough for you,
Right.
but it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson I learned in my own life is, when I look back at when I was immersed in pain and confused of pain, it was just a very much disobeying some of the extreme natural laws of health.
Right. Well, and especially as an athlete, you're working your body so hard, it's almost that masochist lifestyle where it's not performing unless you're exhausting yourself.
Correct.
But, sometimes you have to just start back from a neutral state and just walk a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you said that, for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about what you do with athletes. Let's toss a log on this fire here.
Get a log on there.
And really start leaking.
Start diving in.
Yeah.
I love it. Great
All right,
first
take
set.
a break.